In the last of the output options, we're going to take a look at the flattener, and this is another very useful one for checking your document. It's not as important now as it was in previous versions of InDesign because they really have improved the output and there are a lot less problems than there were with earlier versions of InDesign CS when they introduced transparency effects. First of all, what is a transparency effect? Well, a drop shadow is one, for example. Or here's another one here. Here I've got an image and there's no background here. This isn't white, as you can see when I move it over the text, like that. You can see through it here, but the image itself is opaque. And of course I can change it by coming over here, and there you can see the text behind it because I'm changing the transparency. So basically that is what a transparency effect is. And if we go to our effects menu, all these options are effectively transparency effects, the way they're applied to any image. So you don't want them to cause problems when you go to press, so it's a good idea to give them a quick check. We do that through the window menu, output, flattener preview here. Now at the moment we don't have anything highlighted, but we have to tell it what to highlight, and we can pull this down and choose from these various options here. I'm just going to look at a couple of them. Transparent objects here, and here we can have objects which have transparency applied to them highlighted. Now you'll see down here where we have drop shadows, it's got this red outline around where the drop shadow is. This one here, because it's got the transparent background here, it will have the background highlighted as well. If I were to select this and just add a transparency there, and then it'll take a few seconds to refresh, it comes up and the whole image is highlighted. Now I have auto refresh selected here. If I turn this off, that way it'll work a little bit faster. I can move this back up and then just hit refresh when I'm ready to look at it. Now one of the problems in the past was if you had something like text interacting with a transparency object like that, then this text would get rasterized and it would look pretty bad compared to quality text which wasn't interacting with the transparency. As I said, most of these problems have been solved. PDF is a lot better, and when it flattens everything, it works a lot better. But still, it's best to avoid these. And one of the ways that I avoid it, as I had to do in the earlier versions, was to create different layers, and always to put my text layers on the top and the graphic layers, especially those with transparencies, below that. And that really was a fix for it at the time. So I still do that out of habit, and it's not a bad practice. Let me look at how you can look at how objects get affected. If I say all affected objects like that. So here it's highlighting objects that are getting affected by the transparency. And because this drop shadow around these photographs overlaps this black bar at the side, it now gets highlighted. If I move the text over here and refresh, nothing happens. However, let me come over here and move this text down onto a different layer and then refresh, but this time I'm going to place it behind the graphic. Arrange, send to back like that, and refresh. Here you can see this text is now red. So you want to be very wary of any text that shows up as red when you have all affected areas, because when this gets flattened, the text could get flattened as well. So as I said, the solution is to move the text up to a different layer so that it's always above the graphic, and in this case I'm going to move it away so it won't really be affected by it. But it's good just to go through your document like this and see where the transparency effects are, and if they're interacting with any text. If you can avoid it, it's obviously something you would want to do, but as I said, it's just not quite as big a problem as it used to be, because the export to PDF, which we'll discuss later, is so much better now than it used to be.